Welcome into the PFF NFL Daily. It is an emergency PFF NFL Daily because we're sitting here watching Amazon Prime Thursday Night Football, and Adam Schefter breaks the big news. Christian McCaffrey being traded from the Carolina Panthers to the San Francisco 49ers, reported to be, what do we have, multiple picks? Multiple day two picks potentially?
Yeah.
Man, the rumors were strong that Christian McCaffrey was going to get traded. Wasn't expecting the 49ers, but once again, Kyle Shanahan loves his running back, so Christian McCaffrey going to a running back-friendly system in San Francisco, to say the least.
Certainly is. And when you look at it just on the face of it, Christian McCaffrey plus a Kyle Shanahan offense, I mean, wow, that's fun. Like, that is going to be fascinating to watch. On a broader level, it is kind of mind-blowing that Kyle Shanahan seems to have this running back obsession when, of all the people in the NFL, the evidence should say Kyle Shanahan in particular should have no interest in high-value running backs, in investing in them in free agency, in drafting them high, and yet he keeps swinging. He keeps coming back and taking another chop at running backs, whether it's in the draft, whether it's in free agency. Like, you look at the list of guys that have had success in this offense, and it drives fantasy owners nuts, right? Because they can never figure out who the lead back is going to be, because in any given year, you're going to get a Matt Breida or a Raheem Mostert or a Jeff Wilson or an Elijah Mitchell, and you never know who it's going to be. All you know is it's not going to be the guy he drafted in the second round or the third round, and he just keeps doing that. But now you get Christian McCaffrey added to that, and it's just going to be a fascinating mix.
The official terms are in per rap sheet. Ian Rappaport, I think he's the first one I see here. The 49ers get Christian McCaffrey. The Panthers receive a second-round pick in 2023, a third-round pick in 2023, and a fourth-round pick in 2023, in addition to a fifth-rounder in 2024. Here's the thing, Sam. I want to talk about what this means for the Niners, but philosophically, we talk a lot about never drafting a first-round running back and all this fun stuff. This is almost, if you look at it high level, almost a justification for the Panthers spending the 8th overall pick on Christian McCaffrey. They got a few years of service time out of him, signed him to a long-term contract. The fact that they're this far into McCaffrey's career and able to get a second, third, fourth, and a fifth for McCaffrey is absolutely amazing. That there's still buyers around the NFL willing to give up that much, plus what McCaffrey has on his contract. His cap number the next 3 years, 19 million, 19 million, 15 million. This is a massive, massive investment by the 49ers.
Yes. And look, from a team building process, resource management standpoint, I think drafting a running back in the first round is significantly less egregious than this, because, you know, opportunity cost is obviously significant drafting a running back in the first round. Well, you took a running back, you could have taken a higher position, a higher value position. You could have drafted a wide receiver, an offensive tackle, a defensive back, a defensive lineman, whatever. You could have gone a lot of places other than the first round running back. But Najee Harris's entire contract is worth like $13 million, right? So the cost in terms of monetary value for drafting a running back in the first round is a fraction of what the 49ers are on the hook for Christian McCaffrey. Like, Najee Harris's 4-year deal is worth less than Christian McCaffrey's cap hit in any of the next several years individually. So you're giving up a ton for this move. And that, I think, is a very questionable decision from the 49ers, particularly because we talked about, you know, the players that they've been able to plug into the system and just get them flying and running and dominating. But I do think, rather than just say, you know, the PFF party line, right? We hate running backs. Running backs don't matter. This is idiotic. This is dumb. It's ridiculous. By all means, point out this is a major investment, and it's one that doesn't, on the face of it, look brilliant, right? It's a lot of picks. It's a ton of money. And of all the offenses in the NFL, this is one that says you really can just plug and play running backs. But because they've done it.
Good.
But just because they've done it, I think it's important to sort of zoom out and say, why, right? Why? Because Kyle Shanahan's not a moron, right? The guy's not running this offense and seeing all this success and going, like, what the hell? Like, he's doing this because he thinks there's value in adding a talent like Christian McCaffrey to an offense that's able to get success with anybody. And maybe a Christian McCaffrey the difference between him and anybody turbocharges this in a way that he's been trying to find since he got there, right? That's why they keep swinging for these running backs.
Yeah, you've been focusing mostly on the run game component here. I want to talk about the pass game, though, because McCaffrey is the best receiving running back in the NFL. Not just catching the ball out of the backfield. When he came out of Stanford, we said, look, if he was just a slot receiver, he's like a second-round pick as a pure receiver. And the Niners now have. We talked about, I called them the dudes on the PFF NFL podcast today, because when George Kittle's on the field with Deebo Samuel and with Brandon Ayuk, incredible playmaker. Even Juwan Jennings, by the way he breaks tackles and everything. The Niners have incredible space players. And put the cost aside for a minute. Tactically, the way they can play on the field now, with Christian McCaffrey coming out of the backfield as a receiver, running the ball as a runner, mixing it up with Deebo Samuel and using those maybe as interchangeable parts. There's a lot of creativity that the Niners can use here. So now, when the dudes are covered, Kittle and Deebo and Ayuk and Jennings, you now have a very effective pass game weapon in Christian McCaffrey.
If you're prepared to use Christian McCaffrey as a hybrid weapon, that makes the personnel combination that they can deploy basically unstoppable, because now you have a running back that can legitimately go out and play wide receiver in Christian McCaffrey. You have a wide receiver in Deebo Samuel that can legitimately go into the backfield and play running back, and you can completely interchange them in any given moment, like pre-snap, at play-to-play. You can do anything you want with them. And if you're a defender, if you're a defense, if you're the guy with the green dot, before the snap, just looking at the offensive huddle, you have no earthly idea what you're supposed to do against that. So that has the potential to be devastating from a matchup point of view. Now, that being said,
Kyle Juszczyk, they actually have a fullback that can do some creative stuff.
That being said, there's a few teams in the NFL that have that kind of potential in terms of matchup, and almost nobody has been tremendously successful at actually deploying it in any meaningful way and taking advantage of it. But if anybody's going to, you would say Kyle Shanahan would be at the forefront of potentially doing that.
Yeah, I mean, Shanahan's, you call him Tin Cup, and last year he had those formations where Juszczyk's your fullbacks, the running back, and your receivers, the tight end, and your tight end's a receiver. You can get creative with it. Now, is that enough, right? Like, is that enough? Price aside, the Niners are going to pay for this in the future, right? Like, they have to pay for it in the future. Lose the second, third, and fourth round pick next year, plus the investment in McCaffrey as the running back. Like, that's going to hurt the roster long term. But in the short term, in a wide open, we just recorded tomorrow's PFF NFL Daily, asking who the second best team is in the NFC. And we don't know, right? We don't know who it really is beyond the Eagles. I'm not saying this puts the Niners over the top, but it's an aggressive move that coincides with this thing's wide open. We're 3-3 like everyone else in the league, and we're just going to make a move to go for it and flood the field with a ton of playmakers.
I just think it's so amazing to me how determined Kyle Shanahan has been throughout his entire tenure in San Francisco to find this running back that he's so obviously searching for, right? This year in the draft, they drafted Davis Price in the the third round. The year before that, they drafted Trey Sermon in the third round. Like, they keep swinging for these running backs, these bigger, heavier running backs. And McCaffrey's not that style. He's a smaller guy relative to some other backs, but they keep looking for these guys that they obviously think will completely change the dynamic of how this whole thing is going to work from the running backs that they're able to just cycle through and plug and play, and that's in this offense. And not only, they've been doing it with sort of third round draft picks, and this is a totally different level. Like, this is four for draft picks plus
4 draft picks and all the money.
Yeah, plus the fact that you're going to be on the hook for $19 million a year for the next couple of years. Like, this is a monster investment in a running back, and I'm just so interested in that dynamic that Shanahan keeps taking a swing at that. And for Carolina, this is like Christmas. Like, that was, it wasn't as bad, but that was approaching the Ezekiel Elliott contract levels of like egregious millstones hanging around your neck for a franchise that needs to reboot and start over. You've just been able to ship that away and get 4 draft picks back in the process. That's like amazing.
Yeah, the question in Carolina is, do you do well by Christian McCaffrey when you're rebuilding? Do you just take this running back who's pretty much the face of the team and just keep investing in him. And no, I mean, you take this opportunity to gut the roster, not even gut the roster, but just add to the roster. They've got some foundational pieces to add because they weren't able to in this past draft, lacking draft capital. So we talked mostly from the Niners perspective, but good move for the Panthers, right? To me, you get away with the very risky move of re-signing the running back. They signed McCaffrey to the huge deal, even though I was half joking saying, hey, maybe draft a running back in the first round because you could flip him a few years from now. You really can't most of the time, right? Zeke is stuck in Dallas. Todd Gurley, they had to pay him with the Rams. The Panthers got out of it, so from their perspective, they did a good job.
It's a phenomenal move for them because I don't even think it locks you into having to tear it all down and do a total rebuild. Like, this would be the deal that you would want off the roster, even if you weren't completely rebuilding. Like, the only way you would want McCaffrey really on that roster right now is if you thought you were a genuine contender this year. In any other scenario, running back plus that amount of money is just not what you want in terms of a roster construction, team management kind of point of view, right? So whether you're tearing the whole thing down to bare bones Chicago style, or whether you're just like, this is not a great contract to be carrying, that's the one you want rid of. And they've been able to get rid of it and get 4 draft picks back. Like, it's genuinely astoundingly a good result for Carolina, which only places like more intrigue into the idea that like the 49ers did this voluntarily. You've got to be excited by what they can do with it.
How much of this is just the desperation on the 49ers part? Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch making a power move, feeling like, hey, something has to change here. So we'll see how it goes. 49ers, I am with you, man. So intrigued by what Kyle Shanahan's looking for at the running back position. So Christian McCaffrey to the 49ers for 4 draft picks and the big contract, the PFF NFL Emergency Daily.